Auspicious greeting to everyone online. Welcome back to our History of Indian Buddhism again. And this is our class 4 for the past three classes. We already discussed about the background of ancient India. And also we discussed about the background of the Buddha and also a brief discussion on the teachings from the Buddha. So last class we end with a brief introduction about the splitting of the Sangha order during the Buddha's time. And in this class, we will continue to look into the splitting of the Sangha order, which leads to the creations of a lot of commentary and also different schools. And after that, the leading to the decline of Buddhism in India. So for the future 2 to 3 class, we will talk about that. And again, I would like to remind everyone that we are not here for the academic research. We are not here to criticize anything. We are just looking on the picture of the history of Indian Buddhism, like watching a movie, but we will get inspiration and deeper understanding of what this movie is trying to tell us, so that it will remind us or make us aware of something that we can prevent. So we're going to start this class now. Okay, the sectarianism in early Indian Buddhism, class 4. So we already shift to the next topic. And last week, we have a brief discussion on the Buddha, that he traveled around the central India to introduce what he realized about the truth of this universal world. And also his objective is to share with us about the truth and guide us how to live our life in a more comfortable or at ease way. Again, it's not the Buddha that actually caused us that. It's us that cause ourselves to whether to want to live a more comfortable life. So Buddha is just a teacher. He's not a god. We don't worship Buddha. We pay respect Buddha. And the symptom of paying respect is to make prostration, as according to the tradition in India at that time. So last week we also touched about this, that the early split of the Sangha order during the Buddha's lifetime. And open Sikhism is Devadatta. Look at Devadatta here trying to push the big rock and try to kill the Buddha. And the hidden Sikhism is the disorder monks, that they are so naughty that whatever the Buddha says, they will find ways to challenge the teachings, or sometimes even do something which is not as according to the rules. So this were the splitting of the Sangha order during the Buddha's time. However, because the Buddha was still alive at that time, so he's able to resolve the challenge from all this monastic. And after the Buddha Nirvana passed away, then things start to change because the spiritual teacher is no more there. So things start to change tremendously. And if we don't do something, or the monastic at that time don't do anything, then Buddhism might not be till now. So now we are going to step into the history and see how the Sangha order transformed, or I should say splitting. So the reason for organizing council, as according to the record, after the Buddha parinirvana or passed away, his disciple, whether monks or lay members, were very, very sad. Were very sad because they lost a great teacher that can guide them in their life. So they were very, very sad. However, there were a group of monastic that are not so sad, that were not so sad. They celebrate. They feel so happy that the old monk no more there. No more telling them what to do. No more guiding them. They can be free. They can be free. So they start to what? Do whatever they want. And they start to spread the happiness among the monastic. And a great disciple, Mahakashyapa, realized about this. He realized about this. He realized that how come the Buddha just passed away and we have such group of monastic totally out of control, no more following the precepts, get so happy about it. And he realized something is that a lot of arahat, after the Buddha passed away, they decided to follow the Buddha and they entered into nirvana as well. Actually, Mahakashyapa are able to enter into nirvana after the Buddha's passed away. But when he heard somebody saying something, he realized that as a senior disciple of the Buddha, he need to do something. And he started to consider of organizing the council, the first council in Buddhism. The first council in Buddhism. So in here, what caused Mahakashyapa to have this mind of organizing a council? Why? Because when the Mahakashyapa on his way rushed back to pay respect to the Buddha the last time before the Buddha's cremation, on the way he met an old monk called Subhada. And this Subhada was so happy that the Buddha passed away. He was singing. He was singing and having joy, and he sang, "Great, great, this old monk Buddha passed away. Now we are free. We are free. We're no more restricted by the precepts. We can do whatever we want." And when Mahakashyapa heard this, he was very angry. He was very angry. At the same time, he was very sad. If all the monks all became the same as Subhada, then what will Buddhism or this Sangha order be? So Mahakashyapa reached there and talked to King Ajatasattu. King Ajatasattu, and say that we have such a situation and this is not supposed to be. We need to continue the Dharma will. We need to continue to spread the Dharma from generation to generation and trying our best to help people. And the king completely agreed with what Mahakashyapa said, because the king, he was the great and devout disciple of the Buddha. So through the support of the king, Mahakashyapa gathered 500 arahats that have not entered into nirvana. And King Ajatasattu support by giving a food support and secure support. They chose a place, Ajagaha. They chose this place to have this 500 arahat. King Ajatasattu support the daily expense, needed, such as the food, the drinks, and with the leading of Mahakashyapa, together with 500 arahats, 3 months after Buddha's nirvana, start the first council, and it lasts for 7 months. In this 7 months, the arahats were all inside the cave. Inside this cave, not going out, close the door, and start to consolidate what the Buddha said. So that's why in our sutra, in Chinese, always start with this 如是我闻, what I heard from the Buddha. And at that time, they consolidate the Vinaya and Dhamma. The Vinaya by Upali, the Dhamma by Ananda. Because Ananda, he was famous with memory. He was the attendant of the Buddha, so that's why he every day followed the Buddha to take care of the Buddha. So whatever the Buddha said to anyone, regardless monastic or lay people, Ananda was there. So he will be the one that recite what the Buddha taught or said to the monastic or lay members. And Upali, he was famous with upholding the precepts. So whatever precepts set by the Buddha, Upali uphold it strictly. So that's why they chose Upali and Ananda to be the one that recite the Vinaya and the Dhamma. So as according to what the Buddha taught us is that everything arises, there's a cause and condition. The cause of this monk, Sabhada, and then also the cause of Mahakashyapa, and the conditions by Mahakashyapa, the king, the Arahat, and the place, and also the person that take care of the procedure. So all these are according to what the Buddha taught us. So everything, even our daily life, anything happens, needs to have a cause. Why we do this? And condition, how do we make this thing happen? We need a lot of elements to come together to make this thing happen. And that's why we call it cause and condition. In Mandarin, we call it 因缘. So, first council in Buddhism, the result. In this 7 months, completely isolated in the cave, they start to have discussion. They have the recite of the Vinaya and Dhamma. They have the repentance ceremony. They have the trial. They even have punishment during that 7 months. So there were a lot of things happened during that 7 months whereby we don't know, because no specific written record. What we can know is that from generation to generation, the monastic transmitted this information verbally. And later on, when they start to compile the sastra, the commentary, then they start to have part and pieces of written record. So how much information was there? How much information was left out? We have no idea. And that's the reason why I keep mentioning here is that we don't criticize. We don't dig into which one is complete, which one is not complete. Because in this hundreds and thousand years, a lot of things happens. Okay, so the result of the first Buddhist council, the settlement of the Vinaya under the leadership of Upali. So I already mentioned about it is that Upali, he was the person that consolidate, recite the Vinaya. Vinaya means precepts, and it's the monastic precepts. The monastic precepts recited out that created by the Buddha through certain reason. And when they confirmed that this Vinaya agreed by the 500 Arahats, this became the set of precepts that need to be upheld by the monastic. Okay, so the second one, the settlements of the text, on the text of the Dhamma under the leadership of Ananda. The same thing is Ananda. He started to recite what the Buddha said when he was present at that time. And the 500 arahats has to agree with what he recited in order to confirm that this is the teaching by the Buddha under the leadership of Ananda. The trial of Ananda, where all minor and lesser rules were retained. This is pretty important because when they consolidate the Vinaya and the Dharma, they realized that Ananda, he was not clear, not completely clear, that confirmed about the minor and lesser rules. Which means that he did not ask the Buddha, says that which minor rules we need to strictly observe, uphold it. Which one we can take it okay. He did not ask the Buddha. So for the minor rule and the minor and lesser rules, there were no specific instruction or answer by the Buddha. The reason is because Ananda did not ask that part. And this leads to future conflicts between monastic and the Sangha order. So Ananda, for this part, get criticized by Mahakashyapa. Mahakashyapa says that you ask about a lot of important rules, precepts. That's good. But how come you did not ask about the minor and lesser rules? When you did not ask about that, it makes it difficult for everyone. And why I say difficult for everyone, you will know it later, the next class. Because of this, things start to change tremendously. The punishments of Chana, which spurred him onto arahatship. This Chana was a monk that is not very, is considered a naughty monk. He did not really listen to the Buddha, his teaching that much. He's considered one of the unwholesome monk. Or we call it the disorder monk. He did not did anything that really against the big precepts or the major precepts. However, he always did something that makes people crazy. And sometimes he really challenged the teachings from the Buddha. But this is not because that he, like Theravada, like Devadatta, that wants to replace the Buddha. His situation is because of his unwholesome habits. These unwholesome habits will not stop him from achieving arahatship if he realized it and decided to remove these unwholesome habits. So by punishing Chana in the first council, they push him to realize the truth of impermanence and not self. And in there, he achieved arahatship. So during the first council, there were a few persons achieved arahatship. One of them is Ananda. The other one was Chana. This is something that if you would like to know about the details, you can look into the Nikaya, one of the Nikaya, or the story of the Buddha, the story of the Buddha. Okay, the first council in Buddhism. So in the first council, the text of the first Buddhist council, Sutra Pitaka and Vinaya Pitaka. So during the first Buddhist council, they only compile the sutra and the Vinaya, the precepts. Sutra means the teaching, the Dharma, and the Vinaya means the precepts. Pitaka means the compilation. a compilation of what the Buddha guide us. At that time, there was no mentions of Abhidhamma Pitaka. Later literature was raised, and Abhidhamma is being regarded as an integral part of the canon. This is something I would like to emphasize a little bit. Some people say that the Buddha, during his time, after his time, during the first council, the Sutra, Vinaya, and Sastra already compiled, which is not completely true. Sutra is the teachings from the Buddha, so we call it Dhamma. Vinaya was the guideline that's set by the Buddha. But during that time, Abhidhamma was not actually established. But some scholars say that Abhidhamma already established because they interpret about Abhidhamma was the explanation from the Buddha. Explanation from the Buddha. So for example, the Buddha taught about the sunyata. However, not all the students understand what he was saying. So he started to do what? A more simple or detailed explanation. And this simple and detailed explanation definitely will have more wordings as compared to his original teaching. So some scholars say that this is already the Abhidhamma. However, strictly speaking, my own opinion is that Abhidhamma is an illustration of the teachings by another person. That person can be a monastic or even can be a practitioner, a lay practitioner. So different scholars have different opinions. And that's why it really depends on different people, different thinking. So this is something I would like to highlight here is that Abhidhamma, strictly speaking, was not compiled during the first Buddhist council. Okay. Sutra Pitaka. Sutra Pitaka and the Pali text, or sometimes they even have the Sanskrit text, as according to the Theravada tradition, there are 5. Actually, it's supposed to be 4. Supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4. However, in later on, they start to compile another one. So the Digna Nikaya, the collection of the long discourses, 34 discourses, means the long paragraph type of teachings, called the Digna Nikaya. The second one called the Majjhima Nikaya, the collections of the middle length discourses, 152 discourses. 152 discourses. So the long discourses, not so many. The middle length discourses, the middle type of teaching, the wordings have more teachings. And the Samyutta Nikaya, the collection of the related discourses, 7,762 discourses. This is what related discourses means, more or less like the detailed explanation of the teaching from the long discourses or the middle discourses. And I did read an article says that Abhidhamma might come from here. The Sastra might come from here. Again, I say that different people have their own different interpretation. So Samyutta Nikaya have a lot of discourses, but basically these discourses are related to the long discourses or the middle length discourses. Anguttara Nikaya, Anuttara Nikaya, collection of the new numerical discourses, 9,557 discourses of these discourses. So in here, this Theravada tradition, they name this as Nikaya with different names as according to the long, middle, related, and numerical discourses. This Nikaya basically are the teachings from the Buddha that more or less close to the teachings from the Buddha. Close to the teachings from the Buddha. More related to our daily life. And also more related to the life of the monastic, how a monastic is supposed to practice, how a lay person is supposed to practice or manage their daily life. And after that, the later collections was this Khuddaka Nikaya, the minor collections. So this collection was quite late. And when they start to discover more from the in India or in Sri Lanka, they start to compile it. So in the Theravada traditions, the monk basically, they need to memorize this Nikaya. And actually they chant this Nikaya in Pali or Sanskrit. Most of them are in Pali. But they are some temple, Theravada temple, they still recite the Sanskrit. And there were also English translation of these 4 Nikaya. You can find it in our FoGuangHuB temple. Most of them have this English translation of this Nikaya. And it's quite easy to read. Most of them are stories, the conversation between the Buddha and the lay members. Quite interesting. Quite interesting. Next. So we have the Pali or Sanskrit Nikaya, so-called the Sutra. But in Chinese, the Chinese also translated these basic teachings from the Buddha into 4 collections or canons called the 4 Agama Sutras. 4 Agama Sutras. So Agama means teachings handed down by traditions. The Chinese Agama Sutras comprise 4 groups, each containing a number of sutras. The 4 groups, or the 4 Agama Sutras, as they are commonly known, are the long Agama Sutra, the medium length Agama Sutra, the miscellaneous Agama Sutra, and the increasing by 1 Agama Sutra. So this is something I would like to elaborate a little bit. So you can see that in the Theravada traditions, they compile 4 Nikaya, and later on they add 1 more in. And when the Buddhism transmitted from India to Central Asia and then through the mainland of Chinese, then the Chinese during that time, they start to learn about Buddhism and they try to translate the sutras from either Pali, Sanskrit, Prakrit, or Central Asia languages into Mandarin, the classical Mandarin. And they translate out into the 4 groups. But they did not use this term Nikaya. They use this term called Agama, Agama Sutra. I think Agama Sutra is a Sanskrit wording. This Agama Sutras translated into Mandarin as long Agama Sutra, medium length Agama Sutra, miscellaneous Agama Sutras, and the increasing by one Agama Sutra. The first three, similar to the Nikaya. However, if you are interested to compare both, you will realize that these two, Agama and Nikaya, when you try to compare the teachings in there, you will find a similarity, and also you will find something that there are something in Nikaya, but there's no recording in Agama. There's something in Agama, the teachings in Agama, but you can't find this in Nikaya. And then you ask this question is that why? Why? I won't tell you the answer why now. Maybe next time when we start with the class of history of Chinese Buddhism, you will know why. You will know why. Because it's related to localization. It's related to localization. It's not because the teachings from the Buddha changed. It's because of we human have different culture, different language, different mentality, and different education. And that's called localization. So when we start to learn about a sutra or sastra, we need to have some understanding about what's happening in the history of Buddhism in that place. If not, you will confuse which one is the correct one. Which one is the one that I'm supposed to learn? You will get confused. So this is something that in this class in here, I would like to emphasize to all of you is that history is very important when we start to really start our learning in the Dharma. When I say really start means that you're really serious in wanting to know about what am I practicing now? The sutra that I'm learning now, what is the historical background of this sutra? What caused this sutra to appear in this world? What caused it? So this is something that I would like to emphasize here. Now we will continue our slide. The sutra, the Nikaya or the Agama Sutra was being compiled during that time. But it was not written down. It was by reciting. And this reciting from the teacher to the students or disciple will from generation to generation to generation. Then later on, they had the written record. So this is something that I would like our members here to remember is that it was by mouth to mouth. So just imagine, by mouth to mouth, are you sure that this transmitting of the teachings are 100% transmitted out from this person to another person? This is something that we have to bear in mind. Now we talk about the Vinaya Pitaka. The Vinaya Pitaka at that time was compiled into 5 as well. This Parajika Pali, major offenses. Pachitya Pali, minor offenses. Mahabhaga Pali, greater session. Guravaga Pali, lesser session. Parivara Pali, summary and classifications Vinaya. So this Vinaya Pitaka, basically this was practiced by the Theravada monastic. Then you will ask me is that what's the precepts or the Vinaya for Chinese monastic? the Chinese monastic precepts for the major offenses more or less very similar. But the minor offenses have already changed as according to the local. And then you ask me, what are the differences, the differences in the minor offenses? Again, in this class, I will not talk about this. Maybe in future, when you attend the history of Chinese Buddhism, you will know about this if the teacher introduced about this. So the precepts, the major precepts for monastic are more or less the same. The first precepts, the most important precepts is that monastic has to practice or uphold celibacy. Means that monastic are not supposed to have a partner, or a family, a children, when they are still a monastic identity. So if you hear somebody says that, oh, I'm a monastic, but my wife stay in where? My husband, my husband stay in where? My children stay in where? And Sunday I will go back to my husband's house. Then this person is not a monastic. A monastic is supposed to devote their entire life to all beings. This person can be renounced in the older age, whereby before this person renounced, they have their own family, their husband, wife, or children. That's fine. But when this person decided to become a monastic, a monks or nuns, and already ordained, ordained as a bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, this person has to leave the family and then stay with the sangha order and live like a monastic. They can't go back to their husband or wife house. They can't. They can come and visit this person, this monastic, as a devotee. But they can't say that, oh, this is my husband, or this is my wife. They can't. This is the most basic understanding of a monastic. Most basic. So monastic and Buddhist minister, basically, monastic can be a Buddhist minister, but a lay Buddhist minister cannot be a monastic. If that lay Buddhist minister have family, have children or partner, have their own career, like an IT or or accountant, this person does not wear a monastic robe, then this person can only be a Buddhist minister. This person cannot be a clergy, a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. Straightforward. So straightforward. Because a bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, they're supposed to 100% completely devote to serve all beings. And when I say all beings, doesn't mean only human beings, including animal, including ghost, all beings. So this is something to highlight when we talk about the Vinaya Pitaka. And here, first council in Buddhism, open split. This is very important. When Buddha was alive, it was considered a hidden split, even though Devadatta was so obvious that against the Buddha, but the Buddha was still there. So he was able to manage it. But after the Buddha passed away, the Buddha no more there. So the splitting inside the Sangha order, the crack start to get bigger and start to float up. So the chanting of the Dhamma and the Vinaya by the 500 Arahats was not completely accepted by all monks. Venerable Purana and his 500 disciples arrived at Rajagaha and were met by elderly monks who asked him to submit and learn the text. However, Venerable Purana would only bear in mind what he had heard during the Buddha's presence and directly from the Buddha. Venerable Purana, it was a very important monk. Why he was important? Because he made a vow to travel far away from the central of India to the places that are considered not completely developed, which at that time somebody says that that place are considered the barbarian, those people that are still not very civilized. He made a vow to travel to these places to introduce the Dharma to the people over there. So he had to face the challenge of attack by the people over there. He has to face the cultural difference over there. He has to face all kinds of danger when he travels so far to those places that are not open yet to the civilization. So in the central of India, whereby it was already developed, Buddhism has been there for a while, and also those practitioners has been in the central of India for a long time. People know about this group of people. They are practitioners. They respect this practitioner. They know who they are. What was their objective to become a monastic or a practitioner? But those places, they don't know about it. So Purana make the vow in front of the Buddha, say that he would like to travel far, far away to these places to transmit the Dharma to them and try to help them. He makes such an amazing and such a selfless vow. So he traveled far, far away. And because he was an Arahat as well, so when he realized that the Buddha already passed away, entered into Nirvana, immediately he started his journey back to the central of India. But because he was far, far away, he needed more days to travel as compared to Mahakashyapa. So when he reached to Rajagaha, the council already finished. The 500 Arahats already out from the cave. And so when he met with these elderly monks that inside the council, this elderly monk says that, okay, we are ready consolidate the sutra and also the Vinaya. The Vinaya and the sutra. So now, please submit and learn these teachings that we compiled out. Basically, Purana did not really against the teaching that much, but he was not comfortable with the precepts. The reason is because, as I mentioned earlier, he traveled to all these places that have so much different in their culture, in their languages, and their way of living. So when monastic travel to that place, they have to more or less adjust their way of their living style. So when the Buddha was alive, Purana will return back to the central India and report to the Buddha and say that, what should we do? Because it's so different from here. So what we monastics supposed to do? And the Buddha gave him the guideline. When the Buddha gave him the guideline, the Buddha did not record it down. There was no record down. And the Buddha did not notify the other monastic at that time. So only Purana know about that. When this thing happened, what we should do. And this what we should do is to modify us according to that condition at that place. But Mahakashyapa and these 500 arahats that in the council, the first council, they were most of them were the monks that active in the center of the India. So they do not understand about the situation at that place and how Buddha in a way flexible in order to make Purana, these great monks, to propagate the Dharma over there. So when they come up with the Vinaya that is suitable for the central India, it was tough for those monks that travel to all these places to really apply it. We'll talk about this later in our class. It was quite tough. So when Purana realized this, and Purana said that, no. I only accept what I heard from the Buddha directly. When I asked him this question, what should I do? The Buddha gave me the answer, I will just uphold this teaching or this Vinaya. And ends up is that the Purana group and the elderly group that led by the Mahakashyapa had disagreement with some of the Vinaya. And then, as according to the Mahayana record, Purana start his own first council outside the cave. Outside the cave. So in the Mahayana, they have this term called the first council outside the cave. 户外结集. But this was basically recorded in Mahayana tradition. So in here, obviously, the crack get bigger. And this crack get bigger, start to have what? Splitting out. During the Buddha's time, this too. After the Buddha's passed away, within 1 year, the first Buddhist council being organized, and they spent 500 arahats, spent 7 months. Of course, all these numbers might not be that accurate because nobody knows. Nobody knows. It was just transmitted from the older generation to the younger generation. So we use this number, 7 months. And then they come up with the Sutra and the Vinaya. The Sutra and the Vinaya, recited by Ananda and Upali. But when Purana arrives, the council already end. And they want Purana, their group, to follow the precepts and sutra that they compile. Purana does not agree with this. He only listens to what the Buddha told him. So obviously, they start to split into Mahakashyapa and Purana group. Purana group. And these two groups, their nature, Mahakashyapa are considered the elderly group, more conservative, very strict to the precepts, no excuse. You have to follow the precepts strictly. No excuse. Purana is also considered the elderly group. They also follow the teachings from the Buddha. But for the Vinaya, the precepts, they will adjust the precepts as according to the condition of the places, of the people in that particular time. More flexible, more flexible. And this flexible adjustment, most of this flexible adjustment are the daily activities of the monastic, which we will discuss this in our next class. In our next class. So, in this class, we talk about the splitting. The splitting. And I remember one of my questions, one of my students, I think in Toronto or in LA, did ask me is that Buddhism is so great, the Dharma is so great, why there's splitting? Yeah, the Dharma is so great, Buddhism is so great, but how are we human beings? We have our own thinking because of our different in background, different in language, different in races. Most important is that different in mindset. And then cause things to be complicated. Cause things to be complicated. So when we know about this, we won't criticize why. It's simple. The ignorance of the beings. Ignorance doesn't mean that it's stupid. Ignorance means that we did not see it. I should adjust this. We choose not to see it. We choose to ignore it. We choose to insist that I'm right. You are wrong. Because I'm right, you are wrong, we start to what? Criticize each other. And then because of criticize each other, we start to create our own theory. And because I want to create my own theory, I need to convince other people to be my supporter, accept my theory. So a group of people agree with your theory. And then you say that, oh, in that case, I have a group of students or members that agree with me. I start to create a school. A school. And then I become the founder of that school. The founder of that school, I need to give that school a name. And then start to recruit disciples. So when you understand from here, you will know that why Buddhism starts to establish different schools, different teachings, different theories, and sometimes even different sutras. So in this class, we already have a brief discussion of the splitting of the Sangha order immediately after the Buddha's passed away in that particular year. And next class, we will discuss about the further splitting of the Sangha order after the Buddha's passed away in 100 to 150 years. So our class will end today, and I will see you next week. Om Mani Tuo Pho.